A democracy is a system of government by the people that typically involves elected representatives. The United States is a democracy. We, the people, elect and vote for the presidential and political candidates that we favor. In order to elect and vote for these candidates and become involved in our community, we must have an informed and engaged citizenry.
Voter turnout is the percentage of eligible voters who cast a ballot in an election. For a true democracy, the people need to turn out to vote, so that a real poll of what the population wants is taken through their votes. If a majority of voters turn out, it is likely that the person the majority of the public wants will be voted into office. A poll with a very low turnout may not be an accurate reflection of the will of the people. Often, people do not vote because they feel their votes won't matter, they don't like the candidates, they're busy, or the poll sites aren't convenient. There have been many efforts to increase voter turnout and encourage participation in the political process in recent years because it has become more common and a low voter turnout is considered undesirable.
Because people don't really care about voting, and they don't really. I think it's because it's on Tuesday and people don't really want to go, and they don't care enough to go.
Because the voter registration, no one wants to do it.
Voter knowledge in America is very low and has been low for decades. The amount of political knowledge that citizens have affects democracy because it affects the way people vote and act towards current politics. When the public does not understand the strategies and opinions of candidates, it results in confusion and voter ignorance. Despite the advancements in education and the increased availability of information through the internet, social media, and news on television, voter knowledge levels have increased very little, if at all. Many people focus more on activities that are interesting to them, rather than taking the time to be updated and learn about current politics. It is more difficult for people that lack political and voter knowledge to control public policy, therefore preventing government from taking the people's needs and wants and using them in a meaningful way. Without having voter and political knowledge, people won't know how to make decisions and therefore democracy will suffer.
George Washington? I don't know.
Our state senators are Tom Tillis and Richard Burr.
Voter apathy is the lack of interest to participate in elections and other political activities. There is a significant amount of voter apathy in the United States in comparison to many other countries. Most Americans take the privilege of voting for granted, yet continue to critique the political system. In relation to the many problems that the public has with the government, a majority of individuals feel as though their voice doesn't matter or that they can't make a difference, which is why they refrain from voting. For example, this could include minorities who feel as though they have no priority in the political process. Another reason for political apathy is simply the lack of interest. Some other reasons people claim to not vote relate to the convenience of voting. It is important to understand how the public feels.
I just don't really have much of an interest in it, and I don't think I really relate to it at all.
I take a great interest in politics. I vote in every election. I try to keep up with the candidates. I try to listen to all sides of the argument, although I am committed in, my choice of party. I've participated in presidential campaigns, made phone calls and that sort of thing.
Political parties have been proven to be a problem for the United States in the past because it has created major division among the people. Political parties also created division in Congress, making it an obstacle for passing legislation. George Washington, in his farewell address, recognized that this would create division, and he warned the country to stay away from them. Now the two main political parties in the U.S., Democrats and Republicans, have formed apathy for each other, which makes it very hard to pass legislation, especially when the executive and legislative branches are of opposite parties, like when Obama was president.
I think when political parties become all about promoting themselves and not about what's good for the people, I think it definitely hurts the legislative process. Right now, everything is all about protecting the Republicans or protecting the Democrats, and it's not about protecting the people they represent.
I think it hinders it because then people tend to just look at oh, I'm not on that party, so I'm just going to go against whatever you say instead of listening to the ideas, trying to come and meet in the middle, and then nothing gets done.
Party polarization is the growing gap between liberals and conservatives. Increasing levels of party polarization results in distrust in the government and gridlock. Gridlock, also known as deadlock, is the difficulty passing laws that satisfy the needs of the people due to opposing ideas among the two main parties. The combination of these issues threatens democracy. The main reason why party polarization worries the public is not because of the extent of ideological polarization, but because of the issues that parties are polarized about. Polarization is mainly caused by divides over economic and/or cultural policy issues. However, recent polarization in the U.S. Congress includes party differences regarding the rules of the game and how democracy is perceived.
In the United States, the Electoral College is a group of representatives that cast votes for a state. Many people had a misconstrued idea that when they go to the polls and cast their vote, they are tallied up with the rest of the United States voters to make a decision on a candidate. In reality, votes are cast by citizens, and based on who has the most amount of votes within a state will determine how many representatives from the Electoral College they receive. In states with a greater population, there are more representatives in the Electoral College. Some people deem this as unfair, and that smaller states are at a disadvantage. Often, candidates may win the most popular votes, but not Electoral College votes, which can ultimately prevent them from winning the election.
People are picked from the primary to run for their party, and then the main election is held, and whoever wins from the party holds the spot in office. I know a lot of people don't vote because sometimes it's hard to register to vote or to go vote on a certain day, so I think it should be a little easier to vote.
The difference between biased and fake news is important to maintain democracy. Fake news is news that deliberately tries to spread misinformation to the public to persuade or dissuade the public from something. It comes down to having an educated public. Having a public that is educated on politics will improve voter turnout and it means the public knows who they're voting for. Today, most of the people watch news to keep up with politics. If people are only using one source for their news, they will be biased by that source, whether it's a liberal CNN or conservative Fox News. If they're reading fake news, it could turn them off to a politician because of untrue facts they think are true. With an educated public, they will know exactly who they are voting for and who can best represent them.
I think there's a lot of fake news in media today, and most people get their information from Twitter or other social media sites, and by relying on fake news, it creates many different opinions, and it hinders the legislative process.
The idea of what makes a good citizen can be deemed as very subjective. There are a number of duties that citizens have that stand alongside their rights. Some basic duties of a U.S. citizen is to respect the laws, whether that be on a state or federal level, to pay their taxes, and defend the country. A right for every citizen is to vote and be active as a citizen, which are both highly encouraged. Simply because each citizen does not take the same actions does not make them a bad citizen per se, but they simply don't participate as the next citizen.
I'm an outstanding citizen. I always go the speed limit, and I always vote, and I read up on stuff, so I'm educated on stuff to make me a better citizen. Have a nice day.